Well, you talked about obviously the draft, and that was a big thing, but we didn't get to talk to you about Hard Knocks. Just maybe what are you looking forward to with that venture?
Looking forward to.
There's some
Yeah,
opportunities
yeah,
there, though, right?
sure. I mean, in all fairness, I'd rather not be eligible to be on it.
Of course.
But since we are, we're going to embrace it. I think it'd be a good way to build some momentum going into the season, and hopefully get our fans a behind-the-scene look that otherwise is very difficult to provide them. And I know the other teams that have gone through it. There's always a reluctance, but it seems like they've come out of it, enjoying the process and feeling better for it. And Coach Reich talked a little bit about it this morning in the season-long event last year. He was dead set against it, but as soon as they started it, they got on a six-game winning streak, and of course it didn't end that well in the end. But he was very much in favor of it. So I think it'll be a good way to build that momentum and hopefully get the season off to a good start.
But maybe some of the things. Oh, sorry, just a quick follow up. Just some of the things.
I wasn't reluctant. I mean, I knew we were eligible, so I called Brian Rolap and talked about it, and um, I guess didn't volunteer, but said if we were chosen, we would definitely, be willing to do it, and talk to Dan and Brad about it, and they were on board. So here we are.
Is there any, like, I don't know, just from the league standpoint, is there any quid pro quo with that? Like, in terms of, I know you just landed the draft, you don't have to go to London. Like, is there any trade off with doing these things?
Not that I'm aware of, Justin. I think it's just, I think it's a marketing opportunity, and I think it's a thing that we can take advantage of, and hopefully, as I said, we won't have to be on it again because we'll be ineligible.
Speaking of editorial control,
I'm sorry.
do you have any editorial control?
Yeah, we get every show you get to have final edit on what they're going to show. They claim, I don't know if it's true or not, that there'll be 1,700 hours of video taken to get down to the roughly 5 hours of broadcast time. So we don't have to look at all 1,700 hours. I think we look at the 1 hour that they recommend going on TV, and then we get to make final cuts if we need to.
Speaking of marketing opportunities, uniforms are always a big thing for fans. I know you knew it was coming too. Is there an update there on what the plan is?
Nothing for this year. We're actually starting a process to look at a possible change for next year. It's really like almost a year plus lead time. So we've just convened a committee. I know we get a lot of things tweeted at us on suggestions of what fans want. So we catalog all those, and we'll take them under advisement.
Do you mind explaining a little bit more the process, like who's involved in terms of like making, I guess, the sausage?
There'll be several people from marketing staff and communication staff. I'll be involved. Probably Mike Disner and maybe some of the other football folks, taking a look at what the options are. There's the option of adding another helmet, as you probably know. We're not doing that this year because our throwbacks really just take the current logo off, but other teams are adding it because they can go back to a throwback that had a different helmet. So we may look at a different helmet as part of this, as well as change to the uniforms. But just started the process. We haven't really sat down with Nike yet and kind of gone through a design.
You did the remodeling of Ford Field a couple of years ago. Is there anything else, Allen Park, Ford Field related, any kind of stuff like that in the works at all? Or?
There's a few things at the stadium this year that will be changing. I'm not going to get into details, but maybe more to follow on that. Some tweaks with some of the concession options and the team store, but I'll get into that at a later date.
One other thing on Ford Field, you mentioned no Super Bowls. Obviously,
Yeah.
those go to
Yeah.
Places that have new stadiums a lot of times.
Yeah.
Ford Field is 20 years old. Not that it needs to go away, but Texas baseball, they did have a new stadium after like 25 years. So
Yeah.
what is the shelf life, I guess, of Ford Field? How much longer?
I hope it's as far as we can see in the future. We will probably have to do some additional updates along the way. I think the location's hard to compete with. I mean, the one drawback I think is parking is an issue sometimes with being landlocked. But with what's going on downtown, we're in a perfect spot I think to participate in all that. And so I think the location's going to be there. And we'll probably add some things. There's some discussion about what's the right size for seating bowls now. I mean, there's a lot of teams taking seats out. The new Bill Stadium, which they're probably talking about next door, is only going to have 60,000 seats. So there might be things to take some seats out and create different viewing options. Those are all things that we're thinking about, but nothing really under current review.
As far as like lower type suite areas, you mean like they have in Dallas?
Not necessarily, but it could be like taking out some of the upper bowl seats and creating like party areas that we did that a little bit with the Miller Lite tap room when we did the renovation a couple years ago.
Didn't mean to cut you off.
No, it's all right.
I think with maybe the first year we talked to you, you had touted, the attendance growth, and it was a big monument for you
Yeah.
this year was kind of trending in the wrong direction, maybe lowest in the league in terms of fans. What's the things you guys can do to start putting, getting fans back out of their homes and more into the stadium? And I guess a slight follow-up, do you think the Canadian border crossing had any impact in terms of filling seats?
Certainly, the last point is true. We have about 5,000 fans that come from Canada. None of them were able to come to games this year, so that certainly was a unique situation that we dealt with, along with maybe Buffalo and a couple other teams. One of the things that was a challenge for us is we were not cleared until July to know that we were going to have fans because we were still under the restrictions, and so we didn't really do any group sales. We didn't do any single game sales until we knew for sure we were going to be able to have fans. So we were behind the curve there. I think coming into the season with the prior two seasons not being that good and getting off to a slow start certainly didn't help. Fans wanting to come to the games later in the season. I think if we start off playing well and hopefully COVID's completely behind us, you'll see a return to full stadiums.
To what extent do you all talk about kind of engaging fans to, I mean, while it is in a rebuild stage, obviously a lot of people are a little tentative, and you've got these naysayers from, 60 years back. But how much do you guys try to shift the narrative on what the team is doing to draw back in fans to a certain extent?
I try it all the time. There's a lot of things within our marketing program. Social media certainly is a big way of engaging. I think Hard Knocks is part of it. Hopefully some of the buzz from today will get people paying attention to us a little bit more. I certainly think it's Key's got to win football games. If you look at the teams that had the most attendance growth last year, to your point, Justin, it was teams that turned around their football team, teams that relocated to new markets, or teams that built a new stadium. We're not going to do the last two. So we got to focus on the first one.
How have ticket sales been?
The renewals have been better than we expected. We haven't started any single game sales yet. It's just been season tickets. I think the last I saw, we were, 7th or 8th in the league in new season ticket sales. And our renewal rate was, running in the high 80s, low 90s. So good. But, if you renew 90%, you lose 4,000 or 5,000 season ticket members. So you got to go replace those just to get back to even. And even the league average is about 91% renewal rate. So every team loses, 9-10% of their season ticket members every year. And then you got to go replace those before you can start talking about growing.
Did the lower, attendance, did that impact, how if at all did that impact free agency this year? Spending money, anything that was available?
Did not affect
football
anything.
side?
No.
Do you have any strong feelings on any of the debates here over time, any of the league proposals or rule changes?
Well, we haven't really, heard yet from the competition committee. So tomorrow morning we'll hear their report. Certainly, there's not much that's controversial this year other than the two, proposals on overtime. We're interested to hear about them. I think particularly in the playoffs, it's something that probably should be discussed. We'll see what happens tomorrow. Sometimes these get tabled before they're ever put to a vote. So hopefully they'll both at least get a chance to make their case, and then we can decide how we want to proceed. But I think we like, aspects of both proposals. Our coach likes to go for two, so go for it on 4th down. So
Speaking of your coach,
Yeah.
we've heard that he is not here.
that's correct.
Is
Yeah.
there any kind of update that?
No, just he
provided?
wasn't feeling well, so just didn't make it. So he was trying to come down on Saturday, pushed it back to Sunday. He called me last night at the reception, said it just wasn't going to be able to make it. So it's more important to take care of your health. We'll cover what he needs.
Speaking of coach, what about the overall just maybe job of Brad and Dan? And I know you guys have gone through a huge culture change in the building and at Ford Field. Just how you think maybe that progress is heading into year 2?
Yeah, I think it's going great. I think the coaching staff that Dan put together, has proven to be as excellent as we hoped it would be. Obviously, we made the changes on the offensive coordinator side, and I'm anxious to see how Ben does this year for the first full season. I know he's excited about the opportunity. Similarly, Brad's built a great team underneath him. I've sat in some of the early draft meetings. We're light years ahead of where we were at this point last year, just because of having the staff here and starting early. So I think we're way better prepared than we were at this time last year, and I think the draft turned out pretty good. So hopefully it turns out even that much better this year.
Kind of football related, but certainly more organizational related. Why did you guys not pursue Deshaun Watson?
We have a quarterback, so we were never in the game for that. And I don't want to get into the off the field stuff and what the Browns talk about, what they did, and the other teams that pursued him, but it just wasn't part of our plans.
Did you have any discussions on an organizational level just about that, though?
I won't get into what we discussed internally, Dave, but we were never serious.
What guidelines are in place about adding players to your roster that have troubled past, let's say?
Well, certainly, we're going to look into everything, and we're going to avoid certain types of behaviors, but I think everybody gets the chance to, make the case on what really happened. We had, the situation with Quintez Cephas when we drafted him, and, he went through the whole process, was found not guilty, proved his innocence. So we got comfortable with that. That's a real situation. A different situation might, have a different result. So
You said certain things you wouldn't,
I won't get into that.
Just go back to ticket sales real
Yep.
quick. Has a determination been made on single game ticket prices?
Well, we didn't raise any of the season ticket prices. I don't know the single game tickets. We usually set those once the schedule comes out, so it'll be dependent upon a primetime game or who's the Thanksgiving opponent. But as soon as I know the schedule, then I'll be able to comment on that.
I'm sure this is a question for Brad and Dan too, but they've talked.
But you're going to ask me?
Sorry, I'm going to ask you. They've talked the whole time about having a multi-year plan in place, and so obviously this is headed into year 2. I just sort of want to check the temperature, I guess, of if you think things are where they're supposed to be or ahead of schedule, or if you have a feel for how the progress is going.
Yeah, I would say they're on schedule. I mean, the biggest proof statement I think was we were a much better football team in the second half of the season last year. We won the 3 games. We had the tie. There was probably a couple more games we could have, should have won. And you certainly want to be getting better as the season goes along. And we were getting better with a lot of our best players not playing. We had the injury bug early in the season, and obviously that sets you back. And I think a lot of the guys that stepped up and played are going to be now ready to step up and play again next year if needed. So I think the depth is much better. And then we have, the draft picks to add more capital to that. We have 5 of the first 98 picks, I think. So hopefully we're going to hit on a few of those. And we added a few people in free agency, and I think we're headed in the right direction.
For fans who might be a little disappointed without a major splash in free agency, Ron, would it be safe to say that the plan is more to build through the draft, and that maybe next year's offseason will be even more important?
I think that's fair. I think DJ Shark was a pretty big signing, and he's hopefully going to return to health and produce for us like he did a couple years ago in Jacksonville. Bringing back some of our own guys. You can't diminish the fact that the guys that we brought back were guys that helped us the second half of this year. We didn't have Josh Reynolds the first half of the year. Khalif Raymond was playing a much different role early in the season than he played later in the year. So bringing those guys back, Alex Angeloni, so we didn't just go out and sign other teams' players. We re-signed some of our own, and then brought in a few to complement what we had.
You said you're beginning an exploratory committee. Is there a goal?
Do you want to be on the committee? Or?
It'd actually be good.
Just the numbers, Rod. How to fix those numbers. Is an actual goal to have a change next year, or is that too early to say?
I wouldn't say it's a goal necessarily, but we're going to evaluate it and then decide if it's the right thing at the right time. Because once you make the change, then you're stuck for 5 years. So we want to make sure that if we're going to do it, it's worthwhile, and we'll be happy for the next 5 years.
And I've always been curious, and maybe this is more in play now with the additional helmet, but is there an organizational philosophy on like Portsmouth and maybe acknowledging that history, or is that something that's not really presently valued as some personal curiosity?
I don't have an answer for that because I've never really thought about it. We don't talk about it, so I think the answer is probably we're focused on Detroit and the Detroit Lions, not the history of Portsmouth.
Gotta get that.
You want? Yeah, right.
1 week. Let's see.
I think I might get killed if we went back to different colors.
Will the WCF remain? That's something that fans
We haven't talked about it yet. I mean, it's a possibility, but I'm not sure. Dave. Yeah.
International, obviously you're going to have to go at some point.
Yep.
I know you guys didn't have one of the international territories this past year.
Right.
I don't know that we understand a whole lot about that, so can you just explain that?
Yeah, we evaluated bidding on one of the markets, and we still may. I mean, the window's not closed on that. We just thought that we had other priorities that we wanted to focus on in our home market. We have part of Canada available to us, the Windsor area, I mean, Canada would be a natural one for us given the proximity, so that may be one that we try and, get access to the greater Canadian market that we don't have today. But
What does that allow you to do? Like if you have
you can open up a sales office there. You can start selling sponsorships. You can start doing other marketing in those markets. I think for some of the teams, it's a much more natural with the Hispanic population. Certainly the Jaguars, it makes sense for them to be in London given the capital they spent over there building fans. Right now for us, it's not as important as some other initiatives, so we've kind of tabled it for now. But I think we'll come back to it, and I'm going to see how the other teams do too. I didn't really need to be the first one.
How big?
And
Oh, I'm sorry.
and because they're spending a fair amount of money opening up offices, hiring people, and I think the payback's going to be maybe years from now. So I'm sorry.
I
Tom,
was just
go
gonna say no. I'm sorry. How big is the German market evolving? I know it's been added internationally. Is it kind of the beginning stages of where London was a few years ago, or is it?
It sounds like there's a lot of enthusiasm. I think they said there were 400,000 people on a wait list for the tickets for the first game. So, yeah. So, I think the sport has a lot of followers, and we're just continuing to tap into that as we play games internationally. So, I would imagine it's going to be a sellout plus and be a big success, and hopefully year after year, what's happened in London could be replicated in Germany too.
what's your expectation for when you will play a game, a home game over there?
Well, certainly one of the years where we have the extra home game, so it won't be this year, obviously, because they announced who the teams are. Next year, I would assume it won't be a home game, might be a road game, and then the following year would be eligible for it. So we'll see. And they never even approached us about it this year, so I don't know. Will there be under consideration in a couple of years? We're probably due. We haven't been, I think, 5-6 years, right? With the back-to-back years or
15.
yeah.